Welcome to the True Life Balance Podcast. My name is Brad Lancaster.
And my name is Tiffany Lancaster. And this is a podcast about relationships and deep connection.
And this is a podcast about health and fitness.
And this is a podcast about consciousness and purpose.
And this is a podcast about business, sales, marketing, entrepreneurship. In other words, it's a podcast about everything that we care about. So come along for the ride and hope you enjoy. So Tami, when we decided 2 years ago we were going to do a podcast, and that's the speed at which we've implemented this.
Well, I mean, you guys had anything else on your plate?
But from the moment that we decided we wanted to do a podcast to talk about our story, to talk about our journey. And share the things that have been really critical and important to us. The first person that Tiff said she wanted, like at the top of her list, we said, we want this to be a conversational / interview type of podcast because we don't think that we have enough, information like to just make it all about us. We want to bring on the people that have affected us. So like, that have affected us and helped us along our journey. And you were at the top of the list for Tiff to have on. And so we're like really honored and thrilled that you would take this time to be with us.
Yeah. I feel like you've played a crucial role in our journey. And so it just wouldn't be complete without
you guys are the best. Well, I want to tell you that I am so honored too. And I can't tell you how many times I think about you guys. And I mean, you guys just handle things with like, you're the boss, but with grace. And it's so inspiring to me to see the way you guys, handle with your family. And you guys take these ideas and these inspirations and you just bring them to life. So I am incredibly honored to be here.
Very sweet. Well, we had a very rough outline, so thought I would share it with you really quick. First, Tiff wanted to share with you her perspective of how we even met, how we got working together, and then we wanted to dive into your story because we've heard a little bit of your story. You've listened to our story so many times, and we really want to dive into you and your story and how you became you because you've mattered so much to us. And then this podcast is the idea is that we talk about 4 key areas that are important to us: health and nutrition, relationships, business, and then finally purpose and connection to source, to God, to the universe. And that's one of Tiffany's favorite subjects, and she's the one always bringing me along where spirituality and connection to a higher power is concerned. So I'm going to stop talking now and ask Tiff if you'll share with Tami like your perspective of how this whole thing started.
Well, first of all, we should introduce her to any listeners. This is Tami Robinson. I think I've heard you call yourself before a spiritual healer, and that's definitely what the role you played for me in my life. You've helped me through a lot of healing, and so yeah, she's amazing at what she does. She's amazing at finding all of the shadows that hold us back and walking through those shadows with you, holding your hand while you do that. So I met Tami. So it was one of my best friends, actually, Jackie, who asked me, she said, I'm going to get this reading done from a psychic, and, I want you to be there for moral support. I'm nervous. And so I agreed to go with Jackie, and you were living in Lehigh at the time. And so I went with Jackie to a reading that you had given her and was totally impressed. Like, you were spot on with everything that you were telling her and the advice that you were giving her. I was like, wow, she is really good. But at the time I was in this place where like, I was just questioning everything. I didn't, I was lost, is probably like rebuilding everything. It was, I'm trying to remember, what year was that?
probably 2014.
Sounds about right. And anyway, I remember Jackie, as we were leaving, Jackie's like, "Are you going to schedule your session with her before we go?" And I was just kind of like, yeah, sure. Kind of nervous about the whole thing. And I scheduled it thinking, I don't know if I'm really going to go through with it. I'll just schedule it and then I'll probably cancel is honestly what I was thinking in the back of my head.
You actually told me Jackie pressured me into making an appointment. I probably won't end up going.
And then this crazy thing happened to me. So on the day that I scheduled it in my calendar, it was probably a week prior, I got a lead to go list a house in Saratoga Springs. And I was talking to this person on the phone and they were like, "Well, can you come out this day?" And, I was scheduling an appointment with them to go do a listing appointment. And the day that they wanted to schedule was the day that I had my appointment with you. And it was like 7 minutes away from your house. And I was like, wow, okay. So I'm going to be there anyway. That would be, it was just so synchronistic. I was like, there's no way I can miss it because it's just too crazy. It
didn't feel like a coincidence.
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. And, work was always my excuse, and this was work and I was going to be right there. So I went on the appointment with you, and I know you say a lot of times when you're doing this work, you don't always remember everything that happens during these sessions, but holy cow, it was such a pivotal moment for me. Just because you hit the nail on the head with all of the healing that needed to happen for me. And of course, at the time, you tapped in and channeled my dad. I know we said we weren't going to bring up dads, but
that's okay.
And it was exactly what I needed to hear at that time. Everything that you had said. So that's how the journey began with you and I felt like you were kind of this guide that was just guiding me on this journey of spirituality and seeking things that we can't always see right in front of us. And it became, and you encouraged me. It wasn't like this, like enabling type relationship where I was just depending on you to tell me all of these things that I needed to know. You encouraged me to do my own work. And that just meant so much to me. I think another, when Brad went to jail, that was another, we'd talked about it on the last podcast. That was another time when you meant so much to me. I can remember a couple of days after he had gone to jail, I felt like a walking zombie. I felt myself slipping into this depression. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do all of this. I know I need to be strong, but I definitely wasn't feeling strong. And I reached out to you and was like, I don't know what to do. I'm in a bad place. I need you. I need you, Tami. And I'll never forget having that session with you and just being in such a dark place. And I remember you telling me he's not going to be there for a year. I'm really feeling that it's going to be 8 months. And I was like, no, it's not possible. Like they said that he has to serve at least a year. And you're like, no, I'm not getting that. It's going to be 8 months. And the next day, Brad had called me from jail. And why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. So as part of my plea bargain when I entered my plea bargain, I said that I would serve a year with no opportunity for early release. Like, it was really important to the prosecutor and it was really important that I serve a year, like, because he was being directed by by the person pushing the prosecution that I had to serve a year. And so I thought it was 365 days. When I got into jail, I immediately started applying for trustee positions within jail, jobs. And one of them was working in the garden, which I eventually got, and I got to work outside a lot while I was in jail. But I got that. I was immediately told, yes, you'll go. And as soon as we have a bunk available in the garden, in the cell that holds the garden workers, you'll have a spot there. So I was like, oh, great. That's awesome. I was working, I didn't have a job yet in the jail. Like 30 minutes later, the correction officer, we call them COs, who was in charge of the cell block that I was in, called me down and said, hey, you applied for a position in the kitchen, and you're going to be moved to a kitchen, the cell block for the kitchen. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I've already been given a position in the garden, and I'd rather do that because I hear the kitchen is a terrible job and the garden is really cushy, so I'll take that one. And he's like, well, you'll still go to the garden when the spot's open, but don't you want to start earning your good time? And I said, I don't get good time. I don't. Good time is the name they use to keep people being nice to each other, to encourage good behavior rather than fights, essentially. And if you, for every day that you are a trustee, for every 3 days that you're a trustee, you get a day taken off of your sentence of good behavior, essentially. And he explained that to me, and I said, no, I'm not eligible for that. And if I'm not eligible for that, then I would rather just wait until my time's in the garden because I don't really want to go work in the kitchen. And he said, everybody that's in this jail is eligible for good time. And I said, no, I think you're wrong. And he said, I know my job. And if you start now, and he pulled out this calculator that he has, he said, you will be released, and this was on like January 26th or 27th. He said, you will be released on September 22nd. And so I immediately got 4 months of my life back. And I said, are you sure? And he said, I'm 100% sure. He said, this is our way of keeping you inmates behaving well. Nobody gets to tell us, not the DA, not the Attorney General, nobody gets to tell us how we run our jail. And so we're going to, if you behave well and keep your nose clean and don't get in trouble, you'll be out on September 22nd. I was overcome with emotion. I immediately went to the phone and called Tiff, and I said, you are not going to believe, like I was with tears in my eyes, you're not going to believe what I just learned. She said, what? And I said, I get out. I'm getting a new position, a new trustee position, and I'm going to be released if I do this well on September 22nd. That is 4 months early. And she said, you're not going to believe what Tami just told me. And I said, what? And she said, she just told me you're going to only serve 8 months. So like we both cried, and then it became my job to be a good inmate and not get in trouble, which I did mostly. So.
I was almost mad that he told me first because I wanted to tell him first.
That is so awesome.
So Tami, like a lot of people get, myself included, like I'll never forget the first reading that I had with you, or the first session I had with you when I went. I'm a skeptic of all skeptics, and I went to meet with you, but I'm also I have this commitment to honesty. And you asked me, well, are you really going to allow me to do this work with you? And I thought, well, we're here. It would be kind of a waste for me to not do it. And so I said, sure, I can do this. And I committed to myself that I wasn't going to play along, because I can fool people. I can say, sure, I'm going to play along, and then not. And so I dove right in with you, and you opened up like several channels for healing for me, especially where generational healing is concerned, that I had never even considered as a possibility. So I'm really curious. Now you've heard how Tiff, like her perspective of meeting you and my perspective, and I'm really curious because you have this amazing gift that you've developed. Tell us how that all started.
it's reminiscent to go back to all of those sessions. It's kind of like you said, I forget. And so when you tell me, I'm like, really? That happened? I don't remember. I feel like just like along for the ride too. And like, give me a play-by-play after, okay? Because I can't remember what what happens. But that's actually just like the beauty of it though, because it is so much. I mean, the more that I can remove me, myself, my ego, my identity, and just get out of the way and literally just focus on the fact that I get to have a moment with this person who is so valued and so special and so guided from the other side. And I just get to be the mouthpiece for it. Like, oh my gosh, what a great job, right?
Right. So how did that all start?
Incredible. Okay, so I have always just been really sensitive to spirit my whole life. I was just like that weird kid that could see spirits and feel spirits, but I thought everyone did. I didn't know that I was weird. but then I started, okay, so I'll kind of explain this because people probably understand this, but in kind of my teenage years, I grew up in kind of a rough situation. In my teenage years, just really had a sense of what the opposition was, like what kind of the dark side of life was in some ways. And it was kind of too much for me to handle. And so I asked to have all of this sensitivity shut off. I asked just to be like a normal person. And that was great that, I just lived a normal life. And then after having all of my kids, I went to nursing school and I became a hospice nurse. And I'd worked in the medical field for years, but hospice just is so different. Anyone who has worked with people who are getting ready to pass away, it's just such a sacred place. Like it's just, you're walking people home, and it opened up. I just felt home when I was there. I felt like this sense of like belonging, like I had been, it was like honoring of how I had always lived my life, which felt like I was always between two worlds.
Interesting.
And I think kind of gave me permission to not have to necessarily choose, that I could be in both worlds and still exist as in this human experience. So it just kind of got louder and stronger and more empathetic. And I'm literally like helping people pass away and telling them like, these are the people that are around you. And you get to be at peace with this because this is taken care of. And like, it just brought a whole new level of sensitivity, and it was beautiful. That led me into realizing how empathetic I was, I guess, and like really feeling other people's feelings and emotions. And I didn't know what to do with that. I grew up in religion. I didn't know what to do with that in religion. And at that time, I really was kind of on my way out, into other perspectives. But I started really getting into meditation. That's really where it started. And I used to meditate in this really dark, big closet. And I started out with like 10 minutes. Like I could not get past like 10 minutes. My monkey mind just going crazy. But after
10-minute meditation is a long time.
I know. It's an eternity when you're there, right?
Yep.
But then I started to just go into these places of remembrance and started feeling this communication from the other side. And I'll never forget, it was one moment I was in there, and my grandpa, who had passed away, came to me just so vividly. And he said, it was just like you and I having a conversation. He just started talking. And then my nephew, who had passed away, came, and he told me a few little details that were like really funny little details that I was like, well, that's kind of trivial if you're on the other side, but they were things that were verifiable. So I didn't think I was crazy. So that's kind of where it began. It was just like this. I physically could feel like this door opened up in my heart, and then I would start seeing things and feeling things. And it was a lot of years. That was probably about 11 years ago. It was a few years of kind of trying to find the balance again, because I got weird for a minute. Like that's a lot to all of a sudden you're like sensing, feeling. I would read an obituary and like my whole room would be full of people. Whoa. So yeah, it was intense. And needless to say, I had to leave hospice. Mm-hmm. that was a very intense. But it just really led me on this beautiful journey. It wasn't something I was searching for, but it was very easy to dive in and be so passionate about. And I'm very scientific by nature. And so to really go into like the quantum physics and the understanding of consciousness and like the scientific explanation of energy and how this is happening. And it's just become such a, I mean, now I'm so passionate about like inspiring others to understand it and teach it. And yeah, so that's where it began.
So cool.
It is so cool. So, so my mind always goes to, and Tiff, like when we talk about like, so you mentioned a couple things, two worlds. So like you're stuck in between these two worlds. What do those two worlds, what do they look like to you? And
that's a good question.
Yeah, so first of all, what do they look like to you? And to a skeptic, I'm not really concerned about skeptics, but to somebody who's trying to understand this connection between the other side of death versus what we're experiencing right now. I guess trying to reconcile where that all exists. But what do the two worlds mean to you, or explain that to me?
Okay. I love that you asked that. Growing up in religion, I had the idea of like there's earth and then there's heaven.
Right.
And that's not necessarily my belief anymore. I feel like, yes, we do. There is this other side. There is this very expansive, eternal, consciousness that I think we're all a part of, which is what I call God, what I call the universe is the oneness, that. But for me, it's almost two worlds are like a feeling. One feels like home. One feels true. It feels soul. It feels like everlasting. It doesn't end. It's not temporary. That side to me, which I've actually seen because I've had a near-death experience, that side is our truest form. It's the all-knowing. It's us in the oneness. To integrate that into this world with a mind and a body and a spirit is the trick. Like that's where that side of the world's always been a lot easier to me. It's just been the last probably 7 years that I really started to integrate into this life and recognizing the beauty of having the body and the human experience. It's incredible. But now I kind of think of it more like dimensionally, like everything exists in this present moment and it's all right here. We just get to choose which dimension we want to react from or we want to act from.
Yeah. I feel like what you did for me. So I had my dad who passed away when I was 7, and he was kind of like my saving grace in everything. My mom was mentally ill, and kind of very much of a victim mindset. She was never a mother to me because she was so used to everybody feeling sorry for her for all of her disabilities. And so I for as far back as I can remember, I was taking care of her. I was more of the mother role. And when my dad passed away, it was so tragic for me because even back then, he was the one that I could depend on. And then all of a sudden he was gone. And so I realized really early in my life and very early on, like I would always look to him for guidance, even though he wasn't here. Like in my deepest, darkest moments or any time I was struggling with anything, like it wasn't God that I prayed to. It was him, like, show me what I need to be doing. And so very early on, I learned introspection and looking to something more than what was here. And I think you gave me validation in that he was hearing me and he was there and he was guiding me. And it wasn't just me being crazy or making stuff up. Like every moment that felt divine to me, you gave me this sense of validation that I wasn't making it up. It was actually divine. And he was actually showing me, lighting the path for me like I thought he was. And so I was able to use that and have the confidence that, yes, that is real. And yes, I can manipulate my world any way that I want to by understanding this concept, understanding the concept of seeing things from, I mean, we use the term 30,000 foot view, but sometimes I feel like it's an even higher view, pulling yourself out of the situation to truly understand what's happening underneath, you know?
Yeah.
So
I love that you said it that way, because I think very few people really understand that concept. And that's actually become a huge part of my work and I call it quantum. It's quantum work, because you literally tap into a higher version of yourself that can see it from a different view and see the lessons, understand it, and really kind of guide this third dimensional avatar that we're playing out. Right. So,
well, it allowed me to look at my life and not think, okay, well, poor pitiful me. I've this poor kid that had this terrible childhood and lost her dad when I was 7, and you know, grew up with no money and a mentally ill mom, and she has no hope. I was able to shift it into, no, this didn't happen to me. This happened for me. And I started asking the questions, okay, why? What am I taking from this? What am I learning from this? How is this building me? What did this prepare me for? And I think that's powerful. It's been powerful.
Yeah. I love that. And really that's the whole secret to the joy and to the evolution here is I call it the alchemy, you know, when you can take something that can be really painful and hurt you and turn it around and go, gosh, this actually served me. It served me in finding a deeper version of myself. And I will never be sad for any of those lessons, you know? Yeah.
Can you explain your Haven method and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So Haven was it was an inspiration that came to me one day. I wasn't going to tell the background of it, but it's really beautiful. So my oldest daughter, she made cheer down at Dixie College. She's this little Spitfire. She's the cutest little thing. She got hurt, got sick and wasn't able to cheer, and just kind of took her down a slippery slope. She ended up getting on drugs and just went down like this really rough road. And she's doing good. She's been clean for 7 years. She's got my grandbaby and she's doing awesome. But one day I was sitting down and I was just meditating, and I kept seeing this picture of Haven Grace, like this, just a picture. And I was like, oh, what's that? Like, it was very vivid. It looked like it was on like a building. It was the Haven Grace Center. And then all of a sudden I just had this whole big download of Haven and what each letter meant, which I'll go into. So I called my daughter and I forgot to mention this part. So what got her sober is that she actually had a miscarriage and came home. We just was like, I don't want that life. I'm going to get my stuff together. And so came home and got her, got clean. But, anyway, so I called her and I was like, I had this Haven Grace, like visualization. And she just started crying and she goes, Mom, that is the name I had picked out for that baby. And we had never talked about that. Yeah. So that's kind of where it all began. And it really, it was kind of a method of alchemy. That's really what it is. And so the H is about healing the core wounds. The A is acceptance, being able to accept the lessons, accept the teachers, accept yourself in the situation that you're in. The V is kind of my favorite because that's where things really start to change, but it's victimization to empowerment. So taking those lessons and those things that have happened in our lives and saying, how can I choose an empowerment view of this? This is also where, when I'm working with people, they start to realize that they are actually instruments of healing for somebody else. And that's why they go through it. So when they switch that from a victimhood to empowerment, they go, all right, how can I take these lessons that I'm learning and share them with somebody else? And it takes them out of the victimhood. It's really incredible. Mm-hmm. And then the evolution is where you really, like, your body, you embody it, you bring it into the physical form. So you walk it, you talk it, you feel it, you visualize it, you really become it. And then the end is inspiring the next person, share it with somebody else.
I love that. It was so powerful for me to hear that because it's such a great acronym.
Thank you. Well, I didn't come up with it. I can't take credit.
So so Tiff refers to you as a spiritual healer. Is that, like, how do you describe when somebody says, Tami, what do you do? How do you describe it?
Okay. That's a good question too. You guys are good at this. When I first started, I would have said a thorough spiritual healer. I would have said, I think people called me psychic, people called me a medium, and none of those labels ever really fit for me. It didn't feel right to me. Now I would say I am a messenger. And what I'm really passionate about is I share something, and I call them, this is what I've been told from the other side to call them, is their light codes. And so I will sit down and meditate, and I will ask, like, is there a message for humanity? Is there a message for a certain person? And I literally just, I feel these words come through me. And so I write them, I share them. I actually do a little podcast too, called the Magdalene Code. And basically just, these words just like cut right to the heart. And so now I feel like we've kind of gone through a big paradigm shift on our planet where the time of it's so important to go to a healer if that's what calls to you, but we're kind of moving into a place where it's like, we are our own healers. We are our own gurus. We can't depend on anyone else. So when I'm speaking these light codes, it's with the intention of like stirring something, an awakening within people. And I think once that awakening happens and you start to feel that light come in, you want more.
Yeah.
So I would say probably more messenger now than healer.
That's interesting. So basically you're saying that this ability to tap into something bigger than this moment, right? Because I've described myself, self-described as a material reductionist. Like I look at what's available, what I can see, and that's what I deal with, right? And I clung to that identity after leaving religion. I thought, okay, I'm not gonna let somebody fool me again. I'm not gonna, and I'm not saying that anybody in religion has been fooled. I'm just saying I felt like I had been fooled. And I decided, okay, I'm not doing this again. I'm going to stick to what I can see, what I can verify. And then you came into our lives and kind of turned that upside down for me because of the experiences we've had. So, and now I'm diving into this idea of past trauma, not just for me, but the generational trauma that exists within all of us, and understanding that my shadow work, the stories that I'm telling myself, the lies that I've believed about myself and about my existence, they've just been passed on to me from generation to generation to generation by other people who were fed the same or similar lies, right? Whether it's I'm not good enough, I'm worthy of judgment, I'm worthy of shame, and those are the things we've been working on lately. So, so in your experience, how do people go from, especially people that have experienced trauma? Because when you experience trauma, you put up all these walls. You put up because that's what we do to protect ourselves, right? And I'm talking about real emotional, spiritual, like the trauma that affects us and causes us to do all kinds of crazy things and have all kinds of crazy reactions that aren't necessarily based on any truth. How do you take somebody, or how does somebody go from, like, if somebody's listening and they're identifying with this material reductionist view where if it's not right in front of me, I'm not going to worry about it. How do they go from that to saying, okay, I'm gonna dive into something that's maybe a little deeper, maybe a little more meaningful, maybe a little bigger than me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that can be a big leap for a lot of people, you know? And I think sometimes the idea of God is, because it has been so kind of tainted, I guess, by religions, not just one, by all religions, I think, or ideas or paradigms. But I think first to start with recognizing that you have a higher self and that your higher self is that connection to that oneness. Because I think sometimes people, and really we shouldn't be trusting in something that's outside of us. We always should be able to bring that inside of us and trust that. And I think for me, I mean, starting out with like a religious view, I was like praying to this outside being, hoping for some kind of answer, some kind of understanding. And that's a beautiful step. But as more time has gone and more understanding, it's now come within me. So I would just say it's actually really healthy to question everything. I think that's where my journey came, is when I started to kind of break down my really fixed beliefs. I had to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just like wipe that slate clean and start over. And for me, at first, I was really angry. I was kind of frustrated that I felt like I had been betrayed. And so I had to develop a relationship with that oneness and higher power, and even the archetypes like Buddha and Christ, and really develop what that was for me as a feeling, not as a knowing. Because when I could tap into the feeling, I knew that they actually were good, that it wasn't this place of judgment, and I had to earn my worthiness to get there.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You opened up a door for me where Christ is concerned, that I had closed, and it's still something that I'm like kind of meandering my way through. Will you share what your thoughts are on Christ, and because you have a really interesting perspective where this is concerned.
Okay. This has been, I guess, something that's been developing over time. And I will honestly say that if you would have told me 15 years ago that this would be my view, I would have been like, you are batshit crazy. That is not going to be happening, because I was so fixed on what this was. But for me, I think a little bit has come over time as I've been ready for it. And now my understanding of Christ is a very metaphysical being. I feel like he is a interdimensional being, maybe what some would call from another star system, a star being. That's what I feel is from just a very, we talk about angels and we give it that name, and maybe that's what it is. But what if it is they're just star beings? What if they're people from a higher evolution that just, radiated at a higher frequency that are here to help the planet? That's kind of my view. So I feel like with Christ, he wasn't, he didn't come here as like this perfect man to obey all the rules. In fact, he was a system buster. And that's, I think, when I really started to tap into that, because I can be a little bit of a rebel and like a renegade. Like if something's not right, I will not shut up about it. And that I felt like almost connected me to him more, because it was like, no, he was a speaker of light and truth, whether it made people uncomfortable or not. That was his mission here. He was here to make things uncomfortable and to change it. And I think he's been painted as this picture of like meek and mild, and yeah, I'm sure all of that. But he also was kind of a badass.
That's awesome.
I also feel like he absolutely had no disconnection between his essence and his humanness. And that's why manifestation was so powerful and so quick for him. He didn't question who he was. He knew that he was the direct vessel of God.
Wow.
Which why he called himself the Son of God, right? Like he knew.
Right. And he never let the thanks or attention be on him. He was always like, it is, you can do this too. I'm just a vessel,
It's powerful.
Yeah. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I just, so I want to talk a little bit about the state of the world right now. I don't want to get into too much controversial stuff, but one of the things that I really admired when all of this stuff started going down that's happening in the world right now, you mentioned, how important it is to question everything. And I'm a firm believer in that myself. And I think through yoga and the confidence that you gave me and, everything that life has given me, that is something that I learned. And I do have a meditation practice. And whenever I'm self-reflecting or, seeking truth, it is a habit of mine to go inward. And things never felt right when the shutdown happened and all of that stuff started happening. At first, I dove deep into the fear, like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. What is happening? Because it was meant to be that way, right? And so in the beginning, I was like, holy crap, okay, we'll do all the things we're being told to do. But something just didn't feel right about it. And the more I kept sitting with it, the more it kept coming to me that like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be just living in fear and doing what I'm told and allowing all of this to happen. And so I did, something was telling me there's more to the story. There's more to the story. There's more that's happening. And so I started seeking, I mean, I went into the conspiracy theories for a little while and was just like, okay, is there a reason why we should, like, we can't hear it? It started happening for me when everything was being suppressed, when people were being shut off and platforms being ripped out from under them. And I was like, wait a second, like, I'm a big girl. Why can't I hear what these people have to say and sit with that and see how that feels for me? Like, that's what we're supposed to do as humans. So that did lead me down some rabbit holes. And it became very apparent to me that that if this was a time for us to be conscious, this is a time for us to be aware, this is a time for us to stand in our sovereignty. And you have also been doing that. And it was just so powerful for me to see someone who I respect has, I agree, it's not good to give our power away or, idolize someone else or put someone else on a pedestal. But it was confirmation for me that, like, okay, it's not just me that's feeling this way, because I felt alone. Even for a little while, Brad was kind of like, I don't know, you're being crazy. Maybe you shouldn't be looking into all of this stuff. So I just think that in this day and age and with everything that's happening right now, I feel like humanity is being tested in that way. Do you feel the same thing, or how do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, that's been kind of an interesting journey. And what I kind of love about this whole experience is everybody is playing out their own manifestation in real time. Yeah. It's like you can have two people in a room and they will have a completely different experience of what the 2 years have been, the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I was with you. I, like, right from the beginning, it was just like, this isn't real. It just did not feel, I mean, not that the disease or whatever isn't real, it's happening, but I knew it wasn't what we were being told. Right. I could feel that from the beginning. Very early on, I started seeing vividly images of what was being covered up with the human trafficking and all of that kind of stuff. So that I didn't even question for 1 second, because I felt it and I saw it in my own mind's eye before I saw it come out. So I knew it was truth. I feel like, so my whole, like, the first year of it, I felt like it was really important to speak the darkness into light. So I was sharing a lot of, like, this is what's actually happening. This is what's being, being hidden. And so I did actually a podcast back then called I Am Mastery, and that's all what it was about. Mm-hmm. Well, just recently, just in the last few months, I felt a shift to a different timeline. And that's probably something that's a little bit confusing. It's really just a different frequency, but in a different timeline. I have chosen to take on the belief that we are healing and that we are coming back together, and that this is the path to unity and to higher consciousness collectively. And it's kind of given me that, like, as long as it takes, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. Also, a lot more compassion for these people who are just so in it. I mean, so many people are so attached to the story, and I get it. I get it because I was there. I get it because I was there in my younger years, being attached to what you're being told. But I've also gotten very firm. People used to send me stuff all the time and I loved it, but I kind of got to a place where I was like, that's not my reality anymore. My reality is that we are already healed. Yeah. That we are already in love and unity. And that's the space I choose to be in. And I honestly do not confront a whole lot of opposition. I'm not seeing a lot of opposition in that place.
That's exactly where we've gotten to. Brad and I actually just had this conversation where, there was a bit of a phase where I was feeling like I needed to stand on top of the hill and, like, speak from the like scream from the mountaintops, like, fight, we need to fight. And I've realized that, like, that is not the frequency that is needed right now. We actually, it's the whole idea of it has already happened, and it's this frequency of love and, yes, freedom is important, but and togetherness. And I think we get there. It's the old saying, like, you get more from honey than you do from vinegar, right? Like with honey than vinegar.
Catch more flies with honey.
That's what it is. And I definitely feel that, like, when we approach things from this place of love and compassion, and like, I do feel at the end of this, it's all going to happen. Like you said, it's a process of healing humanity. And as long as we keep that in our hearts, knowing that this is the way it's all going to end, and it's up to us, like, how we get there, the journey, like, why not choose love, And it just feels so much better, and it's received so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, literally our timeline of destruction and apocalypse and all that Revelations talks about, that timeline doesn't exist anymore. We are truly in the resurrection timeline where we're writing the new story. So what we talk about, what we think about, what we share, how we feel, how we connect to each other, that's the fabric of the new matrix.
Right.
So you both use word. So I remember a few years ago, I don't know exactly the first time, Tiff and I were diving into this question of purpose. Like, why are we even here? Why are we doing what we're doing? And like, if you don't understand that and you don't have certainty in that, it gets really hard to even operate from a day-to-day standpoint. Like, why are you going through all these motions if you don't, like, if there's not something bigger? And it took a while for me to get to the point that I had to find a purpose. I had to find, like, other than just going out and kicking ass every day, right? I had to figure out, what does it really mean? And Tiff's purpose, I remember when she told me, I was kind of like blown away. She said, I really believe I was put here to raise collective consciousness. And I was like, holy cow, I have no idea what that means. And
but I'm in love.
It sounds great. Yeah, I'm in love and I'm intimidated all at once, because I don't even know, like, raising consciousness. What does that even mean? And you just said it. You used that exact expression, that our consciousness is rising. We're going through this evolution. So I'm really curious, because I've heard it from Tiff, and she's, like, shared it with me so many times. And it's one of those things where I listen to it and I think I understand a little bit, and then, okay, the next time I understand a little bit more. And so I'm curious your perspective when we talk about the consciousness raising of humanity. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Okay. Well, I think there's a few different layers to that. I would say the first part of that is remembrance, because obviously we're here in an experience of forgetting, right? We don't remember our origin. We don't remember who we truly are. And that's by design, by us, but also by those that don't want us to remember. Of course, there's opposition on the planet, but we wrote that into the story as well. By forgetting, I think we have a greater chance of remembrance, because we want it so bad. I think that's why people get so uncomfortable. It's like everybody's trying to get somewhere, when really the somewhere is back to home within, back to that present moment. And I think that's the second layer to it, is recognizing that we're all kind of chasing this idea of more and to get somewhere, when really that remembrance and that sense of just peace and home, and like just the fact that we three get to have this moment, like this moment of consciousness. And I mean, everything exists. Everything is peace. Everything is love and unity right here in this moment. Like, we already have it all and we forget.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's what the raising the consciousness is.
Yeah, I would agree.
Holy cow. Okay. So what it really comes down to is being fully immersed and embracing this moment. It's New Age teachers, they say, are you really present? Right? Mm-hmm. And that's like, as you, in our yoga practice, you deal with getting present, like getting into this moment and the sensations and the emotions and understanding where your thoughts are. Meditation can facilitate that as well. Right? And so when you really break it down, what you're saying, Tiff, and what you're saying, Tami, is essentially our purpose is to be here, like to be in this moment right now. Is that right?
Yeah. I actually was having a conversation about this with my friend yesterday, because I've kind of shifted out of, I've nursing in the way that I've done it has not felt right. Even doing healing work in the way that I've done it. And so I've kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis the last 6 months or so of just, well, who am I without those? Who am I without that? And really kind of, what's the purpose? What's the purpose? And it's really started to come to me. And I actually had a beautiful experience yesterday where I didn't have a lot on my agenda, and I left my day open for guidance, and I asked for that. I said, please just let me be an instrument today. And he and I went out for a ride, and I literally heard the words, go to Harmon's. There's a woman that needs help. So clear and vivid. And we pull into Harmon's. There's this lady sitting there at a table with her head down, so distraught. Had a feeling to go give her some money. And I just walked over, and she just broke down crying. And we got to talk to her for a little while. We gave her a ride. We got her number. Just being present with someone who felt so unseen and defeated. And I was like emotional after. I said, no giant room of class or book that I could write or anything can be more powerful than that moment that the universe got to use, that I got to be used as an instrument for somebody.
Tami, that just gave me body chills, like full body chills.
Chicken skin.
Oh
but I forget it. I chase some more too. But really, like, that is it. That's purpose. That is each moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We were talking a couple days ago about being in the moment, and right after Brad and I got married, or was it before we got married that you got the tattoo all in? It was after we got married, right? So Brad has a tattoo on his arm, and it says all in. And it's taken on a completely new meaning for me every time I see it, because I realize that all in means every moment you're all in, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're with your kids, if we're with each other, the importance of just being all in every moment, taking it all in. And of course, we're human, so we're always going to have the moments where we're reacting, to our ego's going to get in the way, and we're not going to be able to, but that's part of it. It's part of it to still be human. That's the beauty, right? Like, we're not human without our ego. And so even embracing the moments when our human is showing up and, we're acting like our 5-year-old self, I love that. But the more we can just be aware of every moment, and even when our ego shows up and we're reacting, like, even if it's not in that moment that you're seeing it, it seems that if you're committed to that, it will come. And if it's a few minutes later or even the next day, you're like, wow, I can recognize, I can see where that was coming from, in that moment. And I just feel like that's such powerful work that if we were to all embrace that work, like, we are. I feel like as a collective, that's the work that's presenting itself with everybody, even if it's coming from fire. Fire is transformation, right? So we have to have compassion for people that are suffering right now, because of the suffering comes that transformation. And it causes us to change, because we can't be so uncomfortable for that long. Like, being uncomfortable is what forces the change. And so I feel like that's really what's happening in the world today, is that people are getting really, really uncomfortable, and it's forcing change upon people. It's forcing people to step back and be aware and really embrace the moments and be present. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. The earth itself is raising frequency.
Yeah.
Like, the earth itself, Gaia, has a spirit, and her vibrations are raising. And to me, that's just like, that's the most exciting thing to me ever, is that like clean water and, access like food that grows abundantly, and everyone living in a more, I love the sovereign. That's the word, that's been my word last year, is sovereign, living in sovereignty, knowing, like being in tune with their hearts and their souls, not just their minds, Yeah.
Yeah. Getting out of, there's almost this juxtaposition that happens, because being present, being in the moment would tell you right here is really all that matters. And at the same time, there is something so much bigger for us to understand. And so as people that are listening to this that know me, that have known me for a while, especially if they knew me as I left religion, they would say, "Whoa, Brad, what's all this woo-woo stuff? What are you talking about? Like other worlds, other dimensions, this is absurd. This is crazy." And my answer to that, just so you know, is maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't deal a lot with trying to convince people of anything at this point, especially where that is concerned. This understanding of your place in the universe, or how you are, right? But what I've noticed is that for real healing of trauma, of hurt, it requires something bigger, right? You have to do something bigger than where you are at right now. We're almost we're getting close on time, and so I'm curious, Tami, for people who are, if somebody is really, they've recognized there's hurt, there's pain, there's healing that has to happen. And by the way, if you're human, that's probably your situation, right? Because unless you were raised by an ascended master like Christ or Buddha, you're probably in a situation that you were healed, or you were raised by somebody who was hurt, who was raised by somebody who was hurt, and so on and so forth. Where does a journey begin for somebody that wants to start like really diving into that shadow work, really diving into that trauma, and really healing it from a point of accountability rather than a victimhood? How does somebody begin that?
Such a good question. Well, I think first is, I think our instincts as a human is to run from anything that's uncomfortable, to numb it with something, to stay busy, to take a substance, whatever it is. So I think the first step in that is to really sit with it and to stop running from it and to turn around and look at it. I did it my whole life. I was running from this big black monster. And when I turned around and looked at it, I was like, wow, that actually was what I thought was my captor, was my liberator. When I turned around and looked at it, it was like, oh, actually, you're here to free me. Wow. And I've been running as fast as I can from you. Yeah. But just to really dive in and feel those emotions. This is one thing I've learned in doing sessions, is that emotions are unique to the human experience. Not all beings get to have that. And so it's kind of our connector between our physical body and our spiritual body. And so emotions are the one thing that we try to turn off in our humanness. Look at all the antidepressants and, take this so you don't feel this. And the emotion is the key. It's the key to get into the gate, to open that up. The more you feel it, the deeper the reservoir gets, like the well gets deeper, and you have more room to be able to receive more inspiration, more soul connection, and the louder your soul gets.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I've heard, I think it was Tami Robinson that I first heard call emotion energy in motion. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, so figuring out that emotions aren't bad, right? It's just an emotion. It's just energy that's residing in us. And so sitting with it, getting into meditation, and
we can actually evoke emotions for the good too. If you learn how you can visualize, and you can use evoke certain emotions to change your life for the better. But you're absolutely right. And I say that all the time. Like, we have these demons, these things that need healing, and for some reason, our instinct is just to run. I don't want to look at it. It's too scary. But That is the crazy thing. The second you stop and turn around and just look at it and face it, you realize it's not that scary. And yes, that is where the healing lies, when you just face it. It's such a beautiful thing. I love that you said that.
Oh, sorry. I talk for you. I love that you said that about emotion. I had a session recently where this lady was telling me about her really high-spirited child. And she's like, I don't know what to do with this kid. My grandson, the same way, just so much energy and emotion. And it came to me so strong to tell her that is the gift that this next generation is bringing in, because that kind of emotion, it's manifestation power. Right? Energy and motion. And so you're absolutely right. I think school should not be teaching, sit down, be quiet, be still. Yeah. No, let's move that energy in a productive way.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That is so cool.
That's my Taylin too. I've always had, she's always like so much emotion one way or the other, and it is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
So Tami, you say, and I've heard you say it so many times, like anytime we tell you thank you so much for this insight, you always are reminding us, you guys, this is within you. I'm just helping you unlock it. And I believe this basic principle that when the student is ready, the teacher will present themselves. And you've been a teacher for us. You opened up doors that really took me on a path from just a complete atheistic, like I said, material reductionist viewpoint of the world to opening up any possibility. And now I'm as open to possibilities of what this universe is as I've ever been. How can people follow you? How can they learn more from you? And I know you're not a guru. You don't present yourself as a guru, but you are a teacher, and you do teach and you do share. What's the best way for people to do that?
Thank you. Yeah, I've actually been really kind of shifting out of doing a lot of, personal sessions and stuff, and kind of in this little place of obscurity. I'm learning that I can do more. I think of it as sort of like the Wizard of Oz. Like if I'm behind the scenes and just putting out the messages, it seems to, I don't know, just feels better to me. So so my podcast is called the Magdalene Code Podcast, and it's on Spotify. That one's fairly new because I had done the I Am Mastery, and once the energy of that shifted, it was time to shift into a different podcast. So that's just so kind of cool. Getting going. But but that one's more talking about the fifth dimension, like this energy frequency of already healed and revealing some of the things that have been in the darkness, So it's been kind of fun to do. I basically just share whatever messages I'm given to share. But TamiRobinson.com too is my website.
That's TAMI, right?
TAMI Robinson.com. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot on there right now. I do a lot of dance workshops, and that has become kind of my favorite thing. It's kind of my passion because it's play, and I'm all about no more hard and heavy. Let's do some of this healing through play and movement.
I love that.
Yeah.
When are we going to do that? Fun. It's just like, I didn't know that. We got to get that set up.
I know. I've been a little on the down low. I've been doing them in Orem, but I just moved to St. George. So I'm going to be doing them down here, but I would travel up north if anybody ever wanted to host those. They're so fun. They're so fun.
That sounds like fun.
So, we basically just do kind of a little intention ceremony, and it's all about kind of moving into the version of yourself that you see yourself as, reminding your body of what that feels like.
It's so powerful. We were just reminded.
It's so fun.
We were just reminded this week in another training we're going through with the yoga couple that like this integration of anything deep, emotional, spiritual. If you don't incorporate the body into it, the psyche kind of it gets shut down. And so talk therapy has its limitations. It's not that it's not worthwhile, but it has its limitations because we are physical beings. We are experiencing this life, this reality as physical beings. And so to try to separate them as, just think about it. well, yeah, you got to think about it, but then you've got to move. You've got to take action. You've got to add that motion part of the energy. Great, you've got all this energy, but if you're not moving, like literally moving, getting up and moving your body.
It's one of the things that I love about yoga, because it's not just about the movement. It's about the energy of the asana, like every pose, and embodying that, bringing that, calling that in by literally doing it, and setting that intention. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I love neuropsychology and, understanding the quantum part of our bodies, the physical part. It's just so magnificent. For so long, I was just in the spiritual realms. I wasn't very connected to my body. And now to really be in that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the funnest thing ever. So
that's why you were one of the first people actually to point me towards Dr. Joe Dispenza. And in discussion about quantum realms, and I'm forgetting the other. There was another term that you taught me that I went down a rabbit hole on, and I can't remember it now. But it was
the mirror neurons. I think
is
that what
neurons.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, mirror neurons. Yeah.
You got me researching mirror neurons, which, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. And so if somebody is curious about what mirror neurons are, you Google and YouTube and spend a little time with Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden and other great teachers that are out there. We're at about an hour, and we want to try to respect your time, and we're so grateful for you coming on and sharing your experiences, your perspective. And I just want to say thank you so much, Tami, for opening up doors and opening up a door for this, like for me, for a really traumatized guy, and allowing me to see. You were the first person to help Tiff expose these thoughts to me, and so it's been really important to our relationship and to my growth as an individual.
Yeah, I know I've told you many times, but I think you do some of the most important work on the planet just by, being you and doing what you do, regardless of what it is you're being called to do. I know that it's super important. So thank you for putting yourself out there and doing it.
Gosh, it's incredibly humbling. I just want to tell you guys, I mean, I think sometimes I get caught in the, like, does this even matter? Like, I'm having fun. This is great, but does this even matter? And so when I hear like the impact that not I do, but like what those messages and that light that comes through me, it's just overwhelming. Again, just so humbling. And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to be in that. And I felt like there's just one more thing I felt like was really important to share is I didn't start out this journey thinking I was going to save the world or anything like that. It was in the depths of my hell that this kind of came through and planted like the lotus flower, I guess, and I feel like it's really important to say, every day I would say, I don't know what you're asking of me, but I am willing and I surrender and I give you all of me. And I would literally just say that. And I still, it's my prayer every day. Like I surrender, I give you all of me, use me in the best way. And so to hear like the impact that it has for them to work through us, it's overwhelming that, and you guys are doing it too. You guys are doing it every day in so many different ways. I'm so inspired by you too. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, so you left us Magdalene, the Magdalene Code podcast and TamiRobinson.com. Everybody should be following you, in my opinion. And thanks again. This was exactly what we needed to kick off our first guest on our podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm honored. Thank you. All
right. Yep. Anything else, Tiff, from you?
No, I just want to say you mean so much to me, and you always will. So if you need anything, let me know.
You guys mean so much to me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Tami. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
This podcast was brought to you by True Agency Real Estate. If you want to check us out, our website is www.utahtrueagency.com, and we are also on all of the socials.